Hey, welcome back in, America. And just when you thought Donald Trump couldn't become any less sensitive to the needs of average Americans, just when you thought he couldn't be any potentially more cruel as we approach the holiday season, oh, do we have a breaking story for you right here. And you're not going to want to miss it because we've just uncovered something you thought was related to the government shutdown, but goes far beyond it because it gets done underneath all the noise. When Donald Trump is forcing people off their SNAP benefits, when he's blaming the Dems for the shutdown and he gets his boy over there, Ed Duffy at the FAA, to start cutting flights and screw up everyone's Thanksgiving travel plans to see their family. Oh no, Donald Trump can be far more cruel than that, and he is in this breaking story, because you're likely aware of what Bernie Sanders said about this.
We have more income and wealth inequality than we've ever had in the history of this country. And yet Trump thought it appropriate to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1%. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and the other multi-billionaires, they get a tax break.
And that's a good meme, too.
And yet right now, today, he is working overtime to stop SNAP benefits going out to the 42 million Americans who depend upon these benefits to feed their families. That includes 16 million children, trying to cut those benefits, prevent them from getting out. Our job is to stand up to Trumpism. It's to create a government that works for everybody, not just Donald Trump and his oligarchic friends.
But then also take a note, when pressed for an answer for Zohar Mandami before he got elected as mayor, right before regarding tax breaks and money and Andrew Cuomo, look at what he says when he gets pressed on an answer, and he actually has a simple answer to the solution. This.
I would love all those things.
Yeah,
how do you pay for it? Who's going to end up footing the bill for those programs?
So I'll answer that question by first explaining some of the endorsements that Andrew Cuomo has received. Elon Musk's endorsement is one of the most expensive endorsements that Andrew Cuomo has ever gotten, because it cost him and the state of New York $959 million in tax breaks that he gave Elon Musk years ago when he was the governor of the state. That's actually more money than it would cost to make every bus free in New York City. So I've said clearly that I believe we should tax the top 1% an additional 2%. That's New Yorkers making $1 million or more a year.
And that's a good meme, too.
And have the most profitable corporations pay the same tax rate they do at the top tier in New Jersey, what they would actually pay here in New York. These things together would pay for the entirety of our economic agenda and start to Trump-proof our city. The endorsements that Andrew Cuomo has got, and this morning he started it by going on Fox and Friends, and Andrew Cuomo is so unwilling to tax Donald Trump's billionaire donors because he knows those are the same ones whose checks that he's busy cashing trying to get back to City Hall.
And that is all tremendous stuff. But the reality is, it doesn't touch this breaking story when you won't believe what Donald Trump and his administration is quietly doing underneath the radar to give corporations millions and millions and millions more dollars in tax breaks. It is unbelievable while people starve in this country. Take a listen to this breaking story right here. Breaking news. Trump quietly dishes out tax breaks to rich investors while slashing food aid for millions. The Trump administration is quietly waging an all-out regulatory war on a Biden-era corporate tax that aimed to prevent large companies from dodging their tax liabilities while reporting huge profits. The Corporate Alternative Minimum Tax, CAMT, was enacted as a part of the Inflation Reduction Act, Democratic legislation that former President Joe Biden signed into law in 2022. The CAMT requires highly profitable U.S. corporations to pay a tax of at least 15% on their so-called book profits, the figures reported to shareholders. As the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy has explained, in quotes, many of the special breaks that corporations use to avoid taxes work by allowing companies to report profits to the IRS that are much smaller than their book profits. Corporate leaders prefer to report low profits to the IRS to reduce taxes and high profits to the public to attract investors. But since President Donald Trump took office in January, his administration has issued guidance and regulatory proposals designed to gut the CAMT. The effort is a boon to corporate giants and rich private equity investors at a time when the Trump administration is relentlessly attacking programs for low-income Americans, including Medicaid and nutrition assistance. The New York Times reported Saturday that, in quotes, with its various tax relief provisions, the administration is now effectively adding hundreds of billions of dollars in new breaks for big business and investors, on top of trillions of dollars in tax cuts included in the Trump GOP budget law enacted over the summer. In quotes, the Treasury is empowering empowered to write rules to help the IRS carry out tax laws passed by Congress, the newspaper added. But the aggressive actions of the Trump administration raise questions about whether it is exceeding its legal authority. The administration's assault on the CAMT has drawn scrutiny from members of Congress. In a September 8th letter to U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, a group of Democratic lawmakers and Senator Angus King, independent from Maine, warned that the administration's guidance notices, in quotes, create new loopholes in the corporate alternative minimum tax for the largest and wealthiest corporations. Most troubling, Notice 2025 to 2027, issued this June, allows companies to avoid CAMT if their income under a simplified accounting method is below $800 million. The lawmakers wrote, in quotes, the Biden administration previously set the safe harbor threshold precisely at $500 million in its proposed CAMT rule after calculating that a higher safe harbor threshold would risk exempting corporations that should be subject to a CAMT under statute. In quotes, now, less than 9 months later, and with zero justification, the new guidance summarily asserts that $800 million safe harbor will not run that risk, they continued. We are seriously concerned that this cursory loosening of CAMT enforcement will simply allow more wealthy corporations to avoid paying their legally owed share. This story was published in partnership with Common Dreams. Can you fathom that? Can you imagine that for 1 second? That he has now changed the actual ceiling and brought it down so that they can continue to report profits off the books with the IRS's help to not actually have to pay taxes while people starve in America. That is your Donald Trump. That is Stephen Miller. That is J.D. Vance. And that is what they're doing with the CAMT, which I guarantee you 99.5% of Americans never even heard of, and another Joe Biden thing that helped America that is no longer going to help people anymore, while they also don't have air traffic and can't feed off of their SNAP benefits. Unbelievable. Like and share the video, subscribe to the channel, and damn, stay frosty.